In the sunny town of San Miguel de Allende, Tadeo, a solitary millionaire, slowly walked through the cobblestone streets, his thoughts aimlessly drifting. Despite the architectural beauty and vibrant colors that characterized this picturesque town, he felt detached from everything. The sounds of the markets, the laughter of passers-by, and even the church bells echoed like distant reverberations in his mind. He had everything he wanted materially: lavish homes, luxury cars, and rare works of art adorning the walls of his vast estates. Yet, something was missing. Once, Tadeo had dreamed of what his wealth could bring: freedom, recognition, and the power to do whatever he wished. But the more he accumulated, the larger the emptiness grew within him. His immense fortune no longer gave him satisfaction or the thrill it once did. Each new acquisition seemed dull, meaningless. The social soirees, exotic trips, and profitable business ventures no longer filled the growing void inside him. That evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden light on the colorful facades of the houses, an unexpected thought crossed Tadeo's mind. It was a strange, almost absurd idea, but something inside him urged him to explore it. He thought that he needed to break free from his monotonous routine and find a new way to connect with the world, to feel something, anything. As he walked down a quiet little alley, he saw a woman sitting on a bench in the shade of an old jacaranda tree. She wore worn clothes, her face marked by fatigue and the weight of the years. A small sign beside her simply read, "Please help me." But it was the look in her eyes that intrigued him the most. Despite her condition, her eyes reflected a glimmer of hope and resilience, something Tadeo hadn't felt in a long time. Without really knowing why, he approached her. His hands went into his pocket, and instead of pulling out a handful of coins or a bill as he would usually do, he retrieved a credit card. This card, the limit of which he had long since forgotten, represented unlimited wealth to him, a symbol of everything he owned but no longer appreciated. "I have a proposal for you," he said in a calm voice, but one filled with a new curiosity. "This card has no spending limit. I want you to use it. For the next 24 hours, you can buy whatever you want. Tomorrow at the same time, I'll come back to take it." The beggar, surprised by this unlikely offer, looked up at Tadeo. She hesitated. Was it some kind of cruel joke? A trap? But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something else. Perhaps a desperate need to give meaning to this gesture, or simply the search for a human connection. After a long moment of silence, she accepted the card. Without saying another word, Tadeo handed her the card and turned away. But as he walked off, a strange feeling began to settle in him. He wondered what the woman would do with this sudden freedom. Would she spend recklessly in luxury stores? Treat herself to an extravagant feast? Each possibility fed his growing curiosity. Later that night, Tadeo returned to his mansion, filled with a sense of satisfaction, as if his impulsive gesture had awakened a long-forgotten feeling within him. He poured himself a glass of wine, settled into one of his leather armchairs, and let his thoughts wander. This bold, unusual experience had broken him out of his monotonous routine. Giving away his unlimited credit card to a complete stranger was his way of shaking up the monotony of his gilded life. However, as soon as his phone buzzed with the first spending notification, his calm was disturbed. Instinctively, he grabbed the device and checked the transaction, a modest amount at a small grocery store. Tadeo raised an eyebrow. He had expected immediate excess, extravagant purchases, but Maria seemed to be taking her time. Maybe she hasn't realized the extent of this power yet, he thought, smiling. But as the night wore on, the vibrations from his phone grew more frequent, and Tadeo, with each alert, rushed to check. The purchases remained modest at first. Food, simple clothes, basic necessities. Nothing surprising, and especially nothing that would truly worry a man like him, used to seeing astronomical amounts disappear from his account without a second thought. Still, he began to feel a growing sense of unease. The notifications came with almost mechanical regularity. Each new purchase intrigued him a little more. As the hours passed, the amounts began to rise. What had been small transactions gradually transformed into larger sums. Still, there was nothing extravagant. No luxury watches, no designer clothes, nor extravagant dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. The spending remained focused on essential items, as if Maria were using the opportunity with surprising caution. But the more the sums increased, the more Taddeo questioned what was happening. He already imagined what could happen. He pictured her getting lost in material pleasures, unable to resist the temptation of the city's most expensive boutiques. He envisioned Maria entering jewelry stores, trying on haute couture dresses, or, even worse, going to a luxury car dealership to buy a life she had never had access to. This idea fascinated him as much as it frightened him. He found himself feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety each time his phone vibrated again. In his mind, he tried to guess what the next purchase would be. Perhaps a designer bag? A gold watch? Expensive shoes? His thoughts raced with each new transaction, and he felt his heart beating faster. He got up from his chair at every alert, unable to stay seated, consumed by curiosity. What surprised him, however, was the repetitive nature of the spending. Each purchase seemed to address a simple need, as if Maria had a specific list to follow, a well-defined purpose. He also noticed that, although the amounts were increasing, they were never extravagant. At one point, he saw a higher purchase at a pharmacy. A few minutes later, another significant amount for blankets and children's clothes. Again, nothing particularly lavish. Taddeo began to doubt. Perhaps this experience was not going to unfold as he had anticipated. The image of Maria walking through luxury stores slowly faded, replaced by that of a woman far more methodical and thoughtful than he had imagined. He wondered what she might be planning. Was it a strategy? Was she discreetly redistributing this unexpected fortune to others? He couldn't understand what was happening, and this confusion was driving him mad. He was used to controlling everything, to planning for everything, but now, he felt like a spectator in a situation completely out of his control. Curiosity became almost an obsession. He scrolled through the notifications with an increasingly critical eye, trying to detect some logic or hidden pattern behind these purchases. Deep down, a small voice whispered that something bigger was happening that night, something he hadn't anticipated. As dawn approached and the notifications slowed, he found himself staring at his phone, wondering what awaited him at sunrise. The next day, as promised, Taddeo returned to the square to retrieve his card. The sun was high in the sky, bathing the town of San Miguel de Allende in a golden light, but that brightness couldn't dissipate the anxiety that lingered inside him. To his great surprise, Maria was waiting for him, a smile on her face, a genuine sparkle of happiness lighting up her features. But it wasn't the look of a woman who had just spent fortunes on frivolous things. On the contrary, she seemed peaceful, almost serene. "You used the card all night," Taddeo said, intrigued, his voice betraying some confusion. "But I don't understand. The spending doesn't match what I expected." Maria slowly stood up, as if each movement carried particular meaning. She handed him a small notebook, worn at the corners but carefully kept. Taddeo took the notebook in his hands, leafing through it with curiosity. Inside, there was a meticulous list of all the purchases she had made. His eyes scanned the words, and he felt his heart tighten. He read aloud a few lines, his mind struggling to grasp the reality of the words he was pronouncing. Food for the children of a local orphanage, medicine for a neighborhood clinic, clothes for impoverished families, and repairs for dilapidated housing. Each purchase represented help for those who, like her, had never known such fortune. Taddeo slowly realized that Maria had not only used his card but had also understood what true wealth was. "You used all that money to help others?" Taddeo asked, a mixture of admiration and disbelief in his voice. "Yes," she replied with an honest smile. "I've never had the chance to do something big for my community. This card was like a dream come true for me. I've always wanted to help, but I never had the means to do so." Taddeo, stunned, rubbed his eyes, trying to make sense of the situation. How could this woman, who lived on the streets and faced so many hardships, be so generous? He realized that Maria had shown a wisdom that few people in his own wealthy circle had. He began to reflect on how he had always viewed his fortune, considering it a symbol of personal success, never thinking about how he could use it to change lives. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "You've done more in one night than most people do in a lifetime." Maria shrugged humbly. "I'm not seeking recognition. I just wanted to do something good. But I hope this gives you a new perspective on wealth. It can be used for so much more than fleeting pleasures." Maria's words resonated in Tadeo's mind, awakening a new awareness within him. Looking at this woman, he understood that there was a depth to life that he had neglected, a human connection he had ignored in his pursuit of material accumulation. In that moment, an idea took root within him. He needed to change the way he lived, the way he thought, and most importantly, how he used his fortune. Tadeo, overwhelmed, burst into tears, his emotions flooding out like a torrent. He, who had everything, had never really stopped to think about what his wealth truly meant. He had never realized the impact money could have when used to help others. That night, as he saw the expenses Maria had made, he rediscovered a part of himself he had long forgotten. The ability to love, to share, to feel compassion for those around him. Each tear that fell from his cheeks seemed to release years of indifference, selfishness, and superficiality. Tadeo now realized that his fortune, rather than being a source of pride, had been a weight that had distanced him from others. Maria's act of generosity had not only transformed the lives of those she had helped, but also Tadeo's. He was now aware that true wealth lay in the bonds formed with others, in the smiles exchanged, and in lives improved. From that day forward, he decided to devote his fortune to improving the lives of the people of San Miguel de Allende, determined not to remain detached from the reality of his community. Tadeo contacted friends, colleagues, and philanthropists, sharing the story of Maria and the impact she had had on him. Together, they formed a coalition to create initiatives aimed at helping the most disadvantaged. With Maria by his side, Tadeo began establishing aid programs, organizing fundraisers for the orphanage and the neighborhood clinic. They also set up workshops to teach practical skills to families, giving them the tools needed to escape poverty. Each action strengthened their determination, creating a growing movement that united the community. Months passed, and as the projects took shape, Tadeo felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He no longer just gave money. He invested his time, energy, and heart into causes that mattered to him. The faces of those he helped lit up his life in countless ways. The smiles of the orphanage children, the tears of joy from families receiving clothes and food. Everything formed a tapestry of emotions he had never imagined. One day, while visiting the new orphanage they had funded together, Tadeo watched Maria talking with children around a meal they had prepared. Her joy was contagious. He realized she had become much more than a friend. She had become his partner in this human adventure, inspiring him every day to do even more. The town itself began to change. Other wealthy individuals from San Miguel de Allende, inspired by Tadeo and Maria's initiative, got involved, creating a support network that had positive effects on every corner of the town. Community markets flourished, schools received new funding, and cultural events emerged, strengthening the social fabric of this beautiful town. One evening, as he stood on the terrace of his mansion, watching the sunset illuminate the cobblestone streets, Tadeo realized that his life had taken a turn. He was at peace with himself, flourishing in a role he had never imagined assuming. By taking care of others, he had finally taken care of himself. The fortune he had once viewed as an end in itself had become a means to achieve something much greater, the ability to transform lives. And deep in his heart, Tadeo knew he would continue to do everything in his power to bring hope and dignity to the eyes of those, like Maria, who needed a helping hand. This journey was just beginning, and he was determined to walk it with Maria by his side, knowing that together, they could make a difference. As the months passed, the relationship between Tadeo and Maria evolved, transitioning from simple friendship to a deep collaboration based on shared values. They became a symbol of hope for the community, proving that the union of wealth and compassion could create lasting change. Together, they organized fundraising events, awareness workshops, and mentorship programs for young people, sharing their knowledge and experiences. One day, during a philanthropic evening, Tadeo spoke before a crowd of influential people in the city. What I have learned from Maria and the people we have helped is that true wealth does not lie in money, but in our ability to make a difference in the lives of others. Today, I invite you to join this journey, to invest not only your money, but also your time and your heart. Together, we can build a better future for San Miguel de Allende. The applause that followed echoed through the room, but Tadeo knew it was only the beginning. Many people responded to his call, and quickly, a wave of solidarity initiatives swept through the town. The projects flourished, and with them, the community grew in strength and unity. However, despite the progress, Tadeo and Maria knew there was still so much to be done. They decided to implement an education program for underprivileged children, allowing every child to have access to extra classes and academic support. Thanks to their efforts, the town school became a place where young people could dream big and envision a future full of possibilities. One evening, while walking through the park, Maria stopped, her gaze lost in the starry sky. Tadeo, look at what we've accomplished. The children are laughing, the families are supported. It's not just about money. It's about transforming lives. Tadeo nodded, tears in his eyes, aware of how far they had come. Yes, Maria. But it's not over. We still have so many people to help. Their commitment was recognized by local media, and the story of their collaboration touched hearts far beyond the borders of San Miguel de Allende. Other towns began to be inspired by their initiative, creating similar movements to give back to their communities. Tadeo's transformation became a living example of redemption, inspiring millions to reflect on their own relationship with wealth and social responsibility. Over the years, Tadeo and Maria developed an unbreakable bond, building not only a project but also a family. They cared for those around them, and as their love grew, they realized they were united by a common purpose, a mission that went far beyond their own lives. One day, as they stood together in front of the new orphanage, Tadeo took Maria's hand and, watching the children play, said, "I never thought life would lead me here. With you, I've learned what it really means to live." Maria smiled at him, moved by his words. "And I never imagined that begging would allow me to meet the man who would change my life and the lives of others. Together, we've lit a flame of hope." Over time, their legacy endured in San Miguel de Allende, uniting people, strengthening the community, and changing mindsets. Tadeo and Maria became iconic figures, not only for their success but also for their humanity and unwavering commitment to others. Thus, the story of Tadeo and Maria became a timeless tale, proof that love and generosity can transform lives, and that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to bring about lasting change. They continued to work side by side, bringing hope to the hearts of those who, once, had believed that all was lost.